Hello people, this is Andrew again from A Dose of Drew, coming at you with another knife review today. This one is the Kizer Infinity, designed by Azo or however you say that. There's Kizer Infinity. This is out of the Vanguard line. This is one of their budget lines. It is the reference to it is the mathematical double loop or double Mobius strip. It depends on however you want to look at it. Mobius, crossing Mobius. However you want to see it, it is the designed to look like the Infinity. I do see a bit of a bow tie in there, especially in this wonderful, what used to be called tuxedo, but now is fun to call the stormtrooper. So the storm tux is definitely a good one on there. There's two versions of this knife. There is the front flipper version, as you see here, and it comes in this black and white G10. And there is the rear flipper version that comes in a black micarta and has a coated blade. I personally am a fan of this one, especially in the smaller size. It's not really a choil, but the empty space that would be covered by a flipper right here and gives you a bit of a front choil, which for this size of handle and knife, if I was stuck back here with a front flipper and all I could do was this is not a full handle. It kind of takes some of the capability of such a fantastic blade shape away. That drop point that's got a bit of an up and then a down that gives you that almost full flat grind. For such a small blade, this thing's pretty slicey. N690, VG10. It's better than 9CR18 if you ask me. Slightly more carbon for otherwise similar composition, and well known. The factory that makes it is well known for what they call clean steel. Not a lot of impurities. They definitely keep their steel clean. So yeah, it's not as high carbon as AUS 10. Has more chromium in it, so you lose a little bit of toughness. Not as much. The composition puts it somewhere between AUS 10 and VG10 when it comes to edge retention, and toughness is going to be closer to VG10. So there's for those of you who have some VG10 that's not hand forged or really well expensive and well cared for, if you have that on your kitchen knives, you know that chopping with it makes it a little bit chippy. This shouldn't be a problem with a knife of this size, but just if you ever were thinking about using this, remember, don't chop hard with it. Anyway, enough about that steel. On to some of the comparisons here. For this little bit right here, this is going to be the Rat 2. As you can see, that's a pretty good size. It's fairly close. I'll also do the CJRB Feldspar. As you can see here, it is really close in size to both of these knives. You're going to see that kind of making a recurrence throughout here as a theme. Cutting edge, very similar to the Feldspar as far as length on that one. Depending upon how you want to measure the Rat 2, the cutting edge goes to the Rat 2 on that one by simple virtue of that extra curve. But actual length from plunge to tip, very similar. Height, full flat grind on here, still can't match. I don't know if you can see that. Still can't match the swell there of the blade. Fantastic little cutter. Comes to a fairly thin behind the edge grind, which is nice. They hit the plunge grind perfectly on both sides. Well done on this. Couple more specs right here for you on that. This is claimed at just over 3 ounces. Don't have a scale, but it definitely hits my feels at that. Jumping right into one more comparison here. This is the Para 3 for this particular instance. We'll be looking at the Spy 27. Again, blade length 3 inches on this, claimed. Handle, overall length 4 or 7 inches, so handle is right at 4, claimed. right in the, zone coming up here. I mean, the rat to your CJRB. Some of your other knives coming up here. This one on the 3-inch blade length, but a little bit bigger on the overall. Then you got something like the Elementum here, where you have almost the exact same proportions. 7 inches overall, 3-inch blade, 4-inch handle, cutting edge. My goodness, this one's got that wonderful little hollow grind. This one's got the taller swedge. Another one to give you a little bit here, as long as we're going Civivi. I should do this one up top because it sits flatter, which makes it easier to see. But the Ortis being just a bit longer when you line up the pivots. If you line them up, some other way, depending on how you do it. The blade is just a little bit longer again. Cutting edge though, just a hair bit. Hollow grind versus basically full flat, especially at the tallest point. It becomes a full flat, which is amazing. All right, there's the Civivis. Ooh, one more here as a standalone to give you an idea, because I like to throw it out here, and that is the Honey Badger Worn Cleaver. Again, cutting edge, though likely if you're looking at these two, that isn't the concern you have. For those of you who are wondering, price on this is just under $60, which in my mind, usually the $60 to $65, I would actually go as high as $70. I believe there's also another channel, Metal Complex, that goes that high. I would go that high for a budget. This is definitely in the budget range. There's 50, there's 60. You got to draw the line somewhere. If I'm on a budget and I'm looking at a $50 knife, this one's at $59. I'm like, ooh, what do I get? Is it something cool? For $10 more, I can probably find $10 by just drinking coffee instead of Starbucks a couple times. There's stuff like that can happen. So, yeah, I consider this one a budget. 70 is about my limit on budget, but 70, 75, you got to draw the line somewhere. Like I said, 70 is about my line on budget. You start hitting $80, and if I'm budgeting $80, I'm looking at $100 knives also as, ooh, what do I get for that? Like, if I'm sitting there, I have $80, ooh, what's that banter? And to go right along with that here, throwing in mini Griptilian, but in this case, the Ritter Hogue Mark II, 3 something. Yeah. Hogue, Doug Ritter, 20 CV. It's the Ritter Hogue Mini. Okay. And for those of you who don't know, I did call up and order the blacked out kit for the handles. So it's nice and clean. Just the Hogue version of the axis lock, and the blade are silver. We won't talk about the screw right there, this almost poking out, and what happened to the other screw that I messed up. It's not right now worth buying a whole new screw set, but I probably will. All black, fantastic clip. Anyway, very similar once more in blade, cutting, profile, size. This is that 3, 4, 7 magic numbers, you guys, and it is very similar to many other knives in this range. In fact, here we go with another one right here, not just any leak, but a random leak. And as you can see, we're starting to run into those magic numbers again and give you a little bit of an idea of in between. This is it next to a blur, where it is most definitely smaller. If you're a fan of some of the other non-assisted Kershaws, which I am very much. This here is a bare knuckle, as you can see. It is dwarfed by the bare knuckle. All right, so random leak away. 3 ounces, N690, right in that sweet spot for everyday carry size. It is a little thick when it comes to the handle thickness. If you look here with the Rat 2, right? Like, whoa. Like, whoa, baby's got back, right? Even the feldspar with this contouring. Now, that being said, there's contouring on this as well. That is not just a flat scale. So you can see right there. Probably better if I put the blade away. You can see right there, there is contouring on that scale. So the contouring helps quite a bit, but this is thick on the back end, right? Back end's a little thick. Helps your hand get a good grip. Action on the bearings. Absolutely fantastic. Steel liner. Again, Vanguard line. So you're going to get, I believe it's ceramic bearings, ceramic caged bearings. One of their standard deep carry clips, which is fantastic, especially for the front flipper, where you get a nice platform with which to grab and hold and control the knife. I mean, you can, those two fingers in that clip can actually, you know, have some relatively good control over it, as well as by having that extra platform in width when you do it, so that it is stable up against your palm, right? You get in the pinch grip, it keeps it flat in there. On the thumb over grip, right, you got a nice wide platform that you can get your finger on, get your hand under. Very controllable, very useful, especially for this type of everyday. I consider this almost a spade type blade, in the way that it goes up and then comes down as a spade drop point or something. I don't know what else to call it. Love the blade shape. It is fantastic and extraordinarily useful. Those are just my comments on this one. So going into the design, it's unique. It's got a theme that's actually cool to me, and it delivers. I can see it. I can see the infinity symbol. Would I like to see this in, you know, more contoured, you know, the higher end, something that you can see is put in there, maybe, you know, maybe a little bit more contoured towards here, blah blah blah. I would like to see a higher end design on this. But for $60 with N690 steel, really good corrosion resistance, decent toughness, decent edge retention, really good edge holding as far as, you know, overall balance, and you can sharpen it on pretty much anything, right? It's not carbided up so much that you can't sharpen it on stuff. It's used in kitchen knives. So anything you can sharpen a good kitchen knife on, you can sharpen this on, which is handy. And I have noticed that using this one, used it to cut out boxes, paper. It was shaving, but was pulling a little bit, a couple of strops on the 1 micron. I literally do 3 on each side. I do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and test it. That was enough to peel hair with no pull on the factory edge, and that's all I've done to it, you guys. After my use to test it, that's what I've done. The design's unique. I really enjoy it, and that front flipper, oh my gosh, one of the best I've tried. Now, I'm not a huge front flipper guy, right? I do have a couple. I'm not going to spoil any upcoming reviews or anything. But this is pretty darned nice, and super easy. The action is smooth, controllable, and I can't get this one, and I don't think so. This is definitely going for the Bic, but here, with just these fingers and the thumb, oops, trying it. As soon as the camera's rolling, you can't do it, but there you go. Right, just those 2 fingers and the thumb are all it takes to open that. Aesthetics, again, I like it. It's unique. It's without looking too unusual. It has a unique. This is a really good execution in my mind of a understated classic but still a unique design, a kind of a take on a very classic design that gives it an awesome aesthetic as well as a unique sort of place. I really like this. Eventually, I expect to keep this in my collection for some time. This is a fantastic EDC knife, and I like the aesthetics. The design, it works. The mechanics are, I don't want to say impeccable, but for $60, this is as smooth as anything from Wii, from Civivi, from, I mean, Kershaw. This is as smooth and as good as anything I've done. This has been just gone. It is still rolling centered, that I'll probably check that tightness before too long here or after this review, mostly because I've just been flipping the crap out of this. Like, this is a very fidget friendly front flipper. Say that a lot of times. Fidget friendly front flipper. Fidget friendly front flipper. That's all you get. But noteworthy points, it's unique. It's got a good design. It's not expensive. It's not good. Would it be cool in D2? Maybe, but it wouldn't be as corrosion resistant. And this is definitely an EDC knife that you want to use. You might use on food. You might use on stuff. So I'll take the corrosion resistance and the reduced wear resistance and a little bit of what's possibly increased toughness if the heat treat is done right. The geometry is great. You know, I can't imagine anything else. Oh man, I'm not doing this thing any justice with my fumble fingers here. There we go. Yeah, it's something I would be interested in because it is unique. It doesn't have, you know, yeah, there's a lot out there. There's things that look different, but there's nothing that looks quite like this. And quite honestly, that blade shape is fantastic for EDC. For almost, you want to open an apple, you want to open a tomato, this thing's got it. You know, you got the corrosion resistance, you got a rounded spine on the top that gives you a little breakaway to go through soft things like apples or tomatoes without hurting your hard material like a cardboard stuff performance at all, and still giving you that extra long flat grind where it's just tall, right? Like, this thing is tall on that flat grind, yet still tight in there. Having the front flipper means no pocket smashing stuff. It sits tight. 3 ounces is not too heavy. I can carry this in athletic shorts. I tend to not, just more often because of the thickness, quite honestly. But not embarrassed of the thickness at all. Just tends to look like I'm sporting some thickness as opposed to a knife. But yeah, so I really like that. And quite honestly, that's what I expected from it. I read it. I knew it was N690 steel. I understand that I can sharpen this pretty easy. If I use this heavy, you know, if I open a whole bunch of letters with it, or you know, every once in a while, I can pick a sliver if I want a pointy thing. But yeah, if you've got if you've got a sharpening system already that you use for like your kitchen knives or anything like that, or if you can strop, honestly, I would, if you have a lower grit, like a 5,000 grit strop, if you have like a 2 or 3 micron strop or something like that, or even like a 3, like a, what is that, a 5 or 6K, 5 or 6 micron, that would be enough. Just like with a kitchen knife, that would give you a slightly toothy edge that'll grip. When you go to cut something, you can apex it nice and get an outstanding working edge that'll last about as long as a really high-end kitchen knife, right? For a lot of people, that's going to be enough. Would I love to see this in something like S35VN that's got twice the toughness and D2 edge retention? Yes, of course I would. And carbon fiber too. You know, yeah, I would love to see actually a higher end version of this with better wear resistance, toughness, and fancier handles. And micarta, you know, maybe something more like a linen or micarta or G10 or anything cool. It's worth it. I think it's a great design. And that really comes to the cost to value ratio on this. $59, I believe, is the current market price on this. It's a great deal, you guys. There's a lot of people who won't like N690 steel. It's not as tough as 14C28N, but if at the same hardness, it'll have a little bit better edge retention, right? If the heat treat's done right, it's not as tough, but it has better edge retention. You start getting some of those trade-offs. It's not as corrosion resistant, but it's still pretty corrosion resistant. It's not as tough, but it's still fairly tough for, we're talking LMAX levels possible of toughness or somewhere close to it if properly heat treated. So yeah, there's value in the steel. It's just there's steels with better edge retention, but they usually have lower toughness or corrosion resistance or both, or they cost somewhere close to twice as much. I mean, we're talking about S35VN. If you can find it, luckily somewhere around $80-$90, but more likely you're looking at the $100 threshold. There's always some exceptions to that, but that's probably what you're looking at. So for 60% of that price, you get a really good steel. G10 is fantastic as a handle material. It is absolutely going full deep carry pocket clip, no lanyard prioritization or clip at all. Very stellar, clean design. When you look at the show side, one tail screw and the pivot. Yeah. And you can't even see the tail screw on this one because it is just the single line. Like, this is clean design. There's a little bit of branding on there, but it's still limited, and it's mostly limited to the flats except for the Kizer and the N690. None of that stuff is there. It's all very, very low key and well done. With that expectations, that's what I honestly expected, less than what this knife delivered. By the specs, this knife is kind of in hand. It fits. You know, I wasn't sure. The flipper version, the black linen micarta, really had my eye, and especially, like the coated blade, it does look cool. But not having the flipper tab there, I really think I got the better version. Being able to have a spot that I still have a sort of recess, right? This type of choil, non-choil reminds me very much of, like, say, the Rat 2 here, right? Where I've got a place that I can put my finger. It's not really a choil, but it's got a sort of obtuse angle there that gives me almost a recess area that I can put my finger. This one's much, much larger. On this, it's still a nice obtuse angle, and it does give my finger a sort of bump stop before that. I got a little hill that I got to roll over before I roll onto the blade. It's not a full choil that's going to lock my finger in, but it gives me a place to lock my finger in that isn't the blade in multiple grips, whether I'm choking up with my pointer or if I need to choke up and finger the blade for ultimate tip control for things like, sliver, minor surgery, as we used to call it back when I worked construction, where you do minor self-inflicted surgery to withdraw a splinter or something along that. Really does give you control if you need to finger the blade up there for that type of stuff, as well as an extra spot if you really need to get your finger up, as well as if you come back down. This is one of the parts. If you do a lot of crafts or things where you do the tip, this right here, yes, you can do it for some of the, you really need to get in there, but if you just need to like score, do something really tight, this allows you to get your finger, up to the tip. Just the tip though. Giggity. Clean design, great execution, great action, decent steel, right? Like, this isn't 8CR, this isn't 9CR. 9CR18 is still pretty decent steel. This one's a little bit above that. My personal favorite of this genre is the AUS 10. I think it looks better in composition, and what few knives I have, 2 or 3 knives I've tried with it that have decent heat treats. The AUS 10 held a decent enough edge and was tough enough to take on staples and stuff while cutting boxes. So for me, AUS 10 is the higher end of these, but N690 is definitely a good one. And that being said, I'm going to come to conclusions on this. You know, the design is unique and eye-catching while being clean and elegant. The aesthetics reflect that, and that I find it to be a nice-looking knife while not looking threatening or anything, while still, you know, announcing this is a sharp tool. You know that this is a knife. You need to take precautions without being scary. The mechanics, not flawless, but at $60, close enough for it. And of course, you know, noteworthy points are that unique design. It's definitely something that cost is low. So again, $60. I'll repeat that several times. For $60, you get a really high-end knife that really, if this were a titanium clip and say M390 or SS35VN or even S30V, this knife would be twice the price. And that's all they would have to change. You get a better clip on here and improve the steel, and you having a knife that's twice the price. The rest of the action, all the other things you can think of, are the kind of equivalents you find on something that costs a lot more. And I can't begin to once again talk about how much I like value when it comes to things, all things I buy, much less my knives, and this delivers. Yeah, it's a Kizer, it's a Chinese made knife, but they definitely put forth the effort to make a quality product. And they're using Austrian steel. They're definitely putting in the craft work, so I can't blame that. It's a good value. They're not trying to sell it at like $20. The $60 is very reasonable, and like I said, once again, if they put a fancy titanium clip on there or a machined clip or something like that that gives you something similar to that, you know, bent titanium, whatever, and S35VN, and that's easily $100 to $120 knife, and you know, $100 knife with the same handle to $120. You put carbon fiber in there. You put carbon fiber instead of black G10 in there. I'm telling you right now, beautiful. I'd buy it too, along with this knife. You give me carbon fiber in here, white G10, and an S35VN blade, I'd buy that knife for twice this price. And I've bought knives for twice that price. It's that good, you guys. This is just sublime in its action, right? Smooth, you can give it a flick. Again, 2 fingers to give you balance. That flat gives you something to work with, and bam, it just works. So I'm going to go ahead and end it on that. This is a recommendable knife. It hits all of the buttons that I can say for something that's good, and it feels good in the hand. You can use it. You can choke back. You can choke up. This is one of the few times where I would think, hey, maybe I could do a lanyard. And quite honestly, if you guys look, if you tie it tight on that post right there, on that screw post, there is enough room for a thin string to go on there. But that's all you could get for a lanyard. You get anything thick, and that tip is going to start cutting into it. But a thin lanyard, yeah, you could do it. Right? This thing's always going to be coming away from that point. So, yeah, it would be possible. This is one of those ones where if you do a lot of choking back on it, you may want something that you can wrap around your finger and get that extra little bit to choke back, and then you really got something. But yeah, recommendable. Cost to value ratio, high. It's Goldilocks zone on everything. Small hands, this thing's gonna fit really good. Bigger hands, it's a smaller knife, but if you can handle something like a leek or a small feldspar or even the mini, you know, I mean, it's the Elementum. You got similar hand space as all of those, as well as blade space. So if you can handle those, you can handle this knife. It's right in that size. So the size is sort of like I don't want to say Goldilocks. It's on the smaller side of the Goldilocks. But if you're like me, where that's, I mean, 3.5 is 3.5 is all I need. Giggity. TWSS. But 3 inches works as well. I'm a fan of many of that size blade and knife, right? Elementums. I mean, I can't begin to tell you. If you look at that, there's a little bit more hand spread on the Elementum because you have the choil and then your hand's wider here, but because this tails off, your finger, just instead of going wider, is tucked. Almost the exact same hand space as the Elementum. And what is not as thin a package, but arguably, depending, at least as useful a blade shape in a simple, classic, elegant design that's got a little uniqueness. Recommendable? Absolutely. Value? High. Oh my God. It's nice. This is, as I have said, design, aesthetic, mechanics, noteworthy, cost to value, and the expectations. Hits all of them. This gets a dose of Drew's damn nice qualifications. That's my rating for it. Damn nice. It hits it. It's Goldilocks on a lot of stuff. This is like the decathlon or the triathlete, where no one thing is perfect, but it does everything at such a high level. It just makes it such a great all-around knife, which to me is what an EDC should be. And I'm going to end it at 30 plus minutes on that, with at least 10 of it telling you just how good this is. This is a good EDC knife. I highly recommend it. Once again, this has been Andrew from A Dose of Drew. Go ahead, watch us a couple times. Like, subscribe, come back in the morning, do it again. Thank you, everyone.